So, guys, another round of crazy Russia news today, really apocalyptic news coming out of Russia. We've got the largest employer in the country 2 hours ago announcing mass layoffs, the largest employer in the Russian Federation. I'll get into that. We've got the fuel crisis spiraling out of control, now with the weather making emergency fuel deliveries to several regions impossible, people unable to get to work, and all the issues that, of course, entails. We've got the Russian central bank data out today signaling an absolute catastrophe in terms of a budgetary crisis. We've got the oil market absolutely spanking the Kremlin today. I'll show you what I mean. Got a Ukrainian intelligence report out saying that everything east of the Ural Mountains is slowly being taken over economically by a conglomeration of Russia and North Korea. These among other stories, but let's start with this is... the clip you've been watching is early in today's early morning hours. I'll read you what I wrote. A hot night in Russia's Volgograd region as incompetent Russian air defense had no luck preventing Ukrainian drones from targeting the Balashov electric substation. Zelensky warned Putin. He said, look, if you are going to take out our energy infrastructure, which they have been repeatedly throughout the war, but increasingly so in the past few weeks, as we knew they would just before winter, we are going to absolutely thrash everything that you have that we can reach in terms of the electricity grid. It's not just the refineries and the transport of oil. Now we're hitting substations, power plants, everything. To give you an idea where that is, it's way out here, quite a distance from Ukraine. And this is the Russian Railways report I was mentioning earlier. One of Russia's largest employers, Russian Railways, announces mass layoffs, and they phrase it in the press release as bringing staffing levels in line with the actual volume of work performed. As you know, Russian Railways, so it's the largest employer in the country for a reason. It was sort of Putin's slush fund earlier in his time in office, where he would just accumulate companies. I mean, it's telecom companies, it's defense corporations, it's not just railways, it's everything, it's logistics. I mean, it's everything you can imagine. They have their hands in everything. It's dozens and dozens of companies. Russian Railways isn't only railways, it's one of the largest holders of companies in Russia. If you want to screenshot that or read it for yourself. Lots of euphemisms in there to keep the slaves from rising up. Here's the Russian version right here. And here's the analysis of, just to show you, not making these things up. Russian Railways is Russia's largest employer. Their sustainability report states that they employ around 696,300 people. A separate analysis notes that in 2022, RZD, Russian Railways, had roughly 701,000 personnel, reinforcing that scale. In a Forbes ranking of the 50 largest employers in Russia, RZD held the first place. So they are an absolutely massive company, and when they are announcing layoffs, it's a very, very big deal. And the fuel crisis is only getting worse, and really, this is the comic relief that we demand on a daily basis to keep us going through this war, especially here in Kyiv. And anything that shows Russia's falling apart, it really gives everyone an extra boost. Russia's fuel crisis continues to spread, with the Irkutsk region banning individuals from purchasing gasoline, now only available for emergency government vehicles. As weather worsens, roads to the region have become impassable for trucks carrying fuel supplies. That should be emergency fuel supplies, after funds for maintenance were cut off late last year. There's some fuel trucks trying to get through as the cold is set in. It's slush season, as you guys probably know up there in Canada. This is the time of year where things get difficult on the road. And what's happened is, I covered it a few videos ago. Since the beginning of the war, Russia has been cutting road maintenance nationwide 40% per year. And so it's just bare bones right now, and this is what the roads look like. And so a lot of these regions, it's impossible to get anything through. Not only the labor shortage, given that so many able-bodied men are off becoming worm food in Ukrainian trenches. While gasoline was initially sold in 25-liter packages, sales to individuals have now been completely stopped. Only emergency services such as ambulances and firefighters are fully supplied. And you got to understand, guys, Ukraine is hitting these refineries still now. So this level, this is not the end game. This is going to get much, much worse. They hit more yesterday, day before. Every day they are just dismantling every aspect of the Russian hell state's energy apparatus. And now all these smaller gas stations are beginning to go bankrupt. Unable to obtain any fuel at all, Russia's small gas station chains are going bankrupt. This is from an article in Russian media. This is a good post from Stratcom, which really shows the extent of Russia's predicament relative to what the world economy is doing and global commodity prices, everything. Despite global oil prices falling 20% since January 2025, the price of gasoline for Russians has increased 73% in the same period. What happened? And I'll click the English translated version. This is per ton. And as you can see, 57,000 down here, rubles per ton. And then up here, 99,700. The whole world is pumping out record levels of oil except one. The decay, corruption, and incompetence of the Putin regime is destroying the core of the Russian economy. And these charts don't lie. I mean, look at everyone. Let's start with OPEC. Trajectory up, up, up. Saudi Arabia itself, up, up, up. Russia. What the hell's going on here, Russia? Right? Iran. Even heavily sanctioned Iran. Even of all the troubles that Venezuela has, Kazakhstan, Iraq, United Arab Emirates, everyone is going gangbusters in terms. I mean, and the U.S. isn't on here. The U.S. is just, well, the best. It's 13.5 barrels per day now, the highest it's ever been, in the history of the universe. And on to the budgetary collapse. This is just getting wild here, you guys. A budgetary apocalypse is unfolding in Russia as the cost of servicing the blitz of bond issuance aims for the moon. The cost of servicing domestic debt now at 16% of total government expenses. And if you remember, the old fortress Russia, you would turn on Bloomberg in the morning and, they would have one of the guys that later turned out to be an FSB agent, talking about how Russia was so fiscally conservative and they were pulling oil from the ground, not accumulating debt, buying gold, filling the central bank gold reserves with all sorts of foreign currency. Google a guy named Dmitry Trenin. He later turned out to be FSB. He was always on Bloomberg, like once or twice a week, talking up Russia for like 10 years. And then once the war started, everyone found out who he actually was. Dmitry Trenin, Trenin. And how you can see all of his past performances on Bloomberg talking up Russia. And he always tried to stay sort of in the middle. But one of his main points was always that, that Russia is fiscally conservative and blah, 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 no debt. Russian interest rates are now at 23%. The issuance of bonds year over year from 2024 to 2025 is now up 600%. And now they're servicing that debt at astronomical rates. And to go further, the commercial banks are now forced to buy these bonds. The Russian government issues the bonds. The commercial banks are now forced to buy them. Commercial banks no longer issuing mortgages or dealing with corporate loans, all these things. They are now just buying what will one day be worthless Russian government bonds that are backed by nothing but what North Korean weapons factories and missiles flying into apartment buildings in Kyiv. It's just capital destruction. If you're buying a Russian bond right now, you are buying capital destruction, and no one's buying them. It's just the Russian commercial banks. It's like the whole thing's just a snake eating its tail. But here's the chart, and it's getting absolutely awesome. Yes, I mean this is a total apocalypse, you guys. And here's the bond issuance once again, just to hammer home the point that I just made. Year over year bond issuance. Yeah, this is. It's just getting crazy. Just take a look at that. The red line is 2025. And on the military front, I'll just read you what Stratcom wrote here. It looks like North Korea is now playing a larger role in propping up the failing Russian military. Russia is increasing its reliance on North Korean troops in Ukraine's Sumy region. From the Kursk region, units from the DPRK, soldiers conduct reconnaissance using UAVs, identify positions of the defense forces, Ukrainian defense forces, and help adjust artillery fire on Ukrainian troops. As noted by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Ukrainian intelligence recorded negotiations between North Korean drone operators and Russian military personnel. Due to heavy losses and the failure of the offensive in the Sumy region, the Russian command is increasingly involving DPRK units in combat operations in Ukraine. And there's just a clip of a North Korean guy with a mountain of drones. Apparently this is occurring near or in the Ukraine Sumy region. And further on the North Korean front, as I've said for a long time, to me it seems that China is really using Russia as sort of a battering ram to smash up the Western world, with the back-end benefit of the inevitable seizing of the, 20% of the world's fresh water alone. Unfrozen fresh water is in one Russian lake, like Baikal. All the sweet Russian oil and gas fields. Supposedly Russia has everything in the periodic table. China is going to be owed one at the end of this, and I think that economically and politically that'll be the first moves that they make to come in and start grabbing control of everything that they want to take from a weakened Russia. And it appears that it's starting to happen, according to Ukrainian intelligence. I'll just read you this article from Keep Insider from this morning, based on info from Ukrainian intelligence. China and North Korea slowly seizing control of Russia's Far East. Russia's vast Far Eastern Federal District, nearly 7 million square kilometers, is slipping under the growing influence of China and North Korea, according to a new analysis by Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service. Published on October 16th, that's today, the report warns that Moscow, increasingly weakened by its ongoing war in Ukraine, is effectively paying off its allies through territorial concessions, jeopardizing control over as much as 40% of its own land, 40% of Russia. You know, everything over on the other side of the Ural Mountains really is a different country, and it's completely undefended right now. Ukrainian intelligence describes the Far East as a region rich in resources but poor in development, now turning into a shared sphere of Chinese and North Korean influence. Beijing's dominance is primarily economic and demographic. Chinese investments are projected to reach 1 trillion rubles. It's about 12.6 billion this year alone. That's a lot of money in Russia. Remember, Russia's GDP is estimated to be around $1.7 trillion right now. Roughly, in between, if the Russian GDP were a state, it would be only the fourth largest state. It's a very small economy, so just the Chinese dropping 12.6 billion in there is a pretty big deal. China's creeping demographic expansion, Ukrainian intelligence notes, has brought up to 2 million Chinese residents into the region. So Russia's old trick of, passportization, where they would, like when they came into Crimea, they came into Estonia, Latvia, wherever, the first thing they do is they send the population to the far reaches of Siberia or wherever, or slaughter them, and they bring in Russians. And to just annihilate any fantasies that there would ever be anything other than Russian as a language or past culture. That's what they've done in every region of Ukraine that they've managed to occupy. And it looks like that's what the Chinese are really intending to do in the far reaches of Russia. 2 million Chinese residents into the region, from Vladivostok to the Urals, supported by visa-free regimes and preferential economic zones. Enclaves are even being formed where Russians practically do not work. Yeah, well, the Chinese come in and they're not wasted 24 hours a day. They're better workers, and I think it's pretty easy to see how this is going to go. And then you have North Korean borderline slave labor, sort of underpinning the whole thing. North Korea's role is complementary but strategic. Over the past year, at least 15,000 North Koreans and up to 50,000 unofficially have arrived for construction, agriculture, and industrial work. Russian companies have requested an additional 153,000 contracts, while Pyongyang profits up to 500 million annually from this labor trade. North Korea is like a staff leasing agency, but with slaves. And they basically just send over a bunch of guys, and these people really get nothing but maybe some roots to chew on, while the Kim Jong-un regime keeps all the cash. These developments, it cautions, may ultimately spark competition between Beijing and Pyongyang for resources and influence. Well, we know how that'll go. both nuclear-armed states now entrenching themselves on Russian soil. As cool as that would be to see a conflict between China and North Korea, I don't think that's going to happen. As the Kremlin pours half its national budget into the war in Ukraine, the once remote Far East is quietly transforming into a frontier of foreign control, a striking sign of Russia's decline and the shifting balance of power across Asia. I mean, we just talked a lot about all the things that China and North Korea are doing in Russia, didn't we? And Russia wasn't in that conversation, really. I mean, yeah, it's only one game in town now. And so on the U.S. front, we have to cover this. As you know, Trump's language on Ukraine has really been changing as it's become clear that not only the military paper tiger thing in terms of what Russian military capabilities are, the propaganda network is massive. You go online and everything you see is Russia, 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 Russia. But really, they're only 1.8% of the global GDP, not the 14% that the USSR represented at its peak. 14% down to 1.8%. But a lot of these old guys, they remember the days of the USSR, and they still think it's a big power. And they go online, and that's reaffirmed. But it is really just nonsense. And it seems the people around Trump are starting to figure out that Putin is going to go down. I mean, the gas lines, the economy, were forced into were forced into U.S. media slowly, and now the narrative has changed. And we don't have any details on this, but Trump plans victory fund for Ukraine, and there's no meat on this. It's just Telegraph story, and I haven't seen much of an analysis because we don't have full details. Weapons for Ukraine to be bankrolled by fresh tariffs on China in U.S. president's plans floated to Europe. And then Trump's comments on this, he basically said, if Europe will do it, I'll do it. And that involves 500% tariffs on China. That money would then go into a fund to buy weapons and support for Ukraine, as long as they're buying Russian oil. And there would be two wins there. There would be China having an incentive to get off Russian oil, which is a tough lift, of course, and then Ukraine getting cash for its defense sector. And this is just more nonsense out of the things that we see Russians doing all over Europe as they continue to be allowed into the civilized nations. What is your problem with Russians? I am Russian, and we will be killing you, he says. And then the K word, anyway, you can read what he says. This Russian just says a lot of bad things. This is only part of the clip. It just shows you their general attitude and disdain. They don't believe that Ukrainians are humans. They don't believe Europeans are humans. But this particular one has a Latvian passport. He's living in the safety of Switzerland. Apparently he was some kind of gangster back in Russia, and he's going around assaulting Ukrainians. They've got a little kid with them, a little 1-year-old kid you can hear in the background, and he's threatening to kill these people and everything. And I mean, I've seen this with my own eyes several times, especially being with Ukrainians around Europe, and I have seen all this stuff, and I don't know, it's a clip making the rounds today. It's from a longer clip. He sits here and insults them and threatens to murder them and all these things. Yeah, it's anyway, they continue to be allowed into the nations of Europe. And how is Putin reacting to all of this? I mean, it's a calamity. It is a catastrophic situation that he finds himself now. He is being assailed from all sides. And yesterday, the quote, Russian Energy Week was basically a big PR show. I'll just read you the headline. Putin on cutting oil production. This is from Kommersant. This is Russian media. So they're not allowed to really, you'll see the extent of what they can say here. Putin on cutting oil production, gas exports, and undermining Nord Stream. Nord Stream no longer exists, thanks to the brave men and women, brave scuba diving men and women of Ukrainian armed forces. Vladimir Putin spoke at Russian Energy Week. He explained why oil production is declining in Russia. Discussed the coal market's prospects. The price of coal is down 48% in the past year. The exports of Russian coal are now down 60%. All the export terminals are filled with the stuff, And the Kuzbas region, which is the main coal-producing sector region of Russia, is in an absolute catastrophe, with 70% of the companies that own the coal mines now closed down, wages are unpaid, and people are leaving the region. And warned of localized electricity shortages in Russia. Kommersant's summary of the president's key statements is available. And there's just several points. If you're interested, oil production in Russia this year will amount to 510 million tons, 1% lower than last year. Multiply anything by 10 when it comes out of Putin's mouth, if it's bad. And it's just some nonsense, So they're really trying to manage this, and I wouldn't want the jobs of these Russian propagandists right now. I don't know. That must be the hardest job in the world at this point. And here's a funny one from Stratcom. This is the woman that regularly harasses me on Twitter. She's officially the Kremlin press secretary, and she's got a pretty funny one here. Kremlin press secretary admits that being sent to Russia is barbaric and inhumane. And this is just her own statement from Russian propaganda network TASS. Just the Ukrainian government found it. Maria Zakharova called Latvia's decision to deport Russians inhumane, barbaric, and Nazism, and described it as inhumane towards the elderly. First of all, there's no elderly people being deported. This is basically Russians that refuse to learn the local language or other visa requirements, or they've been convicted of crimes, or all the other things. And it's just funny because, really, sometimes there's some truth from Zakharova. Okay, guys, have a good one.